Welcome, ciao, this is Davide Travelli, Alaska to Patagonia, and today we're gonna talk about sleeping pads or sleeping mats. What's the different type on the market and what's the right one for you? I had several years of experience with all of them. With this, I only had 8 months, but I think it's enough time to give you all the pros and cons, and let's get into it. There are basically 3 types of sleeping pads to choose from. And how do we choose them? Well, there are 2 main reasons that makes us choose one pad against another one. And the first, it comes down to comfort, which lots of time is a personal preference. And the second factor is the R value. What is the R value? Now, without getting too technical, basically the R value is that rating that tells you how cold or warm will your sleeping mat be. So when we sleep on a campsite, we are very close to the ground. So the sleeping pad that we're gonna choose is also helping us not just for the comfort of the sleep, but to insulate us from the ground. So if the ground is very cold, no matter how warm your sleeping bag is gonna be, you will be cold. You need an insulation layer between you or the sleeping bag and the ground underneath. The R value tells you exactly how insulating is the pad that you're gonna choose. Now, they changed the rating in 2020, but basically, without getting too technical, R values up to 2, they are for summer. So when the temperature of the ground is above 5 Celsius degrees, ratings between 2 and 4.5 are 3 seasons. They can work very well until temperatures of minus 10 degrees, and from 4.5 and above it will be for temperature from minus 10 and below. Now you need to consider, when you look at this rating, it's like the rating of a sleeping bag. It's not the same for everybody. It's only an indication. So if you are a warm sleeper, you will have a good idea when you look at the rating. If you are a cold sleeper, you should undermine a little bit this rating, because you might end up being cold otherwise. Now there are 3 types of sleeping pads on the market. There is closed-celled ones, self-inflatable, and inflatable. And now we will go through each one of them to check what's the pros and cons. Okay, let's start with the closed-cell one. It's basically a glorified yoga mat, in the sense that you just deploy it within seconds. It's very cheap. It's very easy to use. It costs around between $20 and $40 or euros. And it's indestructible. It will last basically forever. You don't need to be very careful when you use it. So if you are careless, this is a good choice. The downside of these pads is that they are very bulky. They don't pack down any smaller than this. They tend to gather in these holes. They tend to gather dirt. They are not very comfortable, because they're not very thick. So you're basically on the ground. If the terrain is uneven, you will feel it. And also they have a very low R value. There's not much insulation between you and the ground. There are some of them, like this one, that has like a silver coating that is supposed to reflect your body heat. But as you can see, it wears off very quickly because it's just painted over. This was silver and now it's silver no more, it's just gray. The other big disadvantage of these sleeping pads is that if you're a side sleeper, you can't really sleep because it's too thin. I'm a side sleeper and it was very uncomfortable to sleep for 8 months on this thing. I had to adjust myself and either sleep with belly up or belly down. And I think for the times that I was trying to sleep on my side, I think I damaged my hip. So who should choose this mat? First of all, if you're not a side sleeper and you sleep belly up or down, you should be able to be relatively comfortable, even though over time the fluffiness, I don't know how to say it, but you can see like in the middle it shrinks down where your weight is. Anyway, if you're not a side sleeper, this is something you could consider. Also, if you're only gonna do a short trip and you will mostly sleep in campgrounds where the terrain is pretty even, you could consider this choice because you will not have too much discomfort. And again, if it's a short trip, it costs only like $20 to $40 or euros, so it's a sensible choice. Next up, we have the self-inflating mats. What are the self-inflating pads? Basically, once you deploy this mat and you open the valve, you let it sit for 10-15 minutes while you eat, and inside it has like a sponge that is going to basically suck some air into the mat, and it's supposedly inflate at air temperature by itself. In my experience, it doesn't really inflate at atmosphere pressure, but you still need to blow it and finish inflating it at your level of comfort. So it's probably self-inflate half or maybe 60%. The problem with this and the characteristic of these mats, the plus are that it's quite comfortable, and there are different types on the market. Some are thinner, some are thicker, depending the type of insulation and R-bar you're looking for. But it's quite comfortable. If you keep it clean, it's long lasting. I know someone that had a thermarest of this type for over 15-16 years before it failed. It's much more expensive than a closed-cell pad, and obviously, as you can see, it's very bulky. It doesn't pack down any smaller than this. It's very heavy as well, and it takes a long time to deploy. You cannot just open it and within seconds be able to sleep on it, and that's something that you need to consider as well. Next is the inflatable ones. This is one of the biggest inflatable ones because it has a very high R value. It has the same weight, more or less, of the closed-cell pad. It's much lighter than the self-inflatable ones. It's very comfortable. Usually the inflatable pads are quite thick. This is about over 6 centimeters, so it's pretty comfortable. It's much quicker to deploy than the self-inflatable pads because you just need to inflate it and that's it. The cons of these products is that they are very expensive. You need to fully inflate them after a long day, and but we will get to that into a minute. You can easily puncture them, especially if you are in an area where there are lots of thorns and goat heads. It needs to be kept quite clean because the oily part of our sweat or the dirt will delaminate the layers of this pad, and thus will basically develop an air bubble that is uncomfortable, and eventually will start leaking some air. But if you keep it quite clean and you're gentle when you use it, it should last quite a long time. Some people also mention the fact that you have to fully inflate it at the end of each day as a cons. You don't have to blow it all yourself. You can buy a little pump like this that will inflate it to a atmosphere temperature, and then with a few blows you finish it up to the firmness of choice. These use two AAA batteries. If you don't want to use a battery operated equipment, the pad comes with this bag that has a hole that goes into has a hole here that goes into the valve. So basically you can just use this system to pump air into it if you don't want to blow it. While the bag to inflate the pad is included when you purchase the pad, at least for the Thermarest ones. I don't know other brands. The pump you need to buy it as an accessory, and it costs about $20, $25 in US, but it's very expensive for some reason in Europe. It's almost double that price. Another disadvantage of this pad, the inflatable ones, is that they are slightly noisy. To be honest, this is something that I hear some people complaining, saying that it's noisy. I never had these problems. It tends to be a little noisier if you camp on a hard surface, like it could be like a house floor, because it's very tough. And if you're camping in the same room with like 3 or 4 people, when you turn and twist, they might hear you doing that. But to me, it's I don't see it as a big issue. Now, why would you choose an inflatable versus a self-inflatable pad? If you are traveling, hiking, backpacking, and bikepacking or bike traveling, I would recommend an inflatable pad. It's where the technology is developing more and more. And these, I would just recommend it if you are if your budget doesn't allow you to buy an inflating mat. But in that case, also I would probably go for the closed-side one. If you're traveling with a car or a motorbike, maybe you could also consider something like this. There are more and more developments on the inflating pads technology, so there's some of them that are packed down even smaller than this. This is about 1 liter. And there's one that came out recently, I think it's called the Neo Air Uber Light from Thermarest, that is very light. It's probably half of the weight of this, but has a very low R value. It's only for summer. You cannot use it for the 3 seasons. If you want my recommendation, there are many brands, and I know very well Thermarest. These are all Thermarest. But if you are considering a Thermarest, I wouldn't choose the X-Term one, but I would go for the yellow one. It's called Neo Air X Lite, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a good balance because it has a quite high R rating. It's 100 gram lighter than this. This is because I'm a very cold sleeper, and when I bought it, I was heading into cold places. I was heading to the Andes in Peru and in Bolivia, and I was expecting temperature of -20s, -25, and then after that I was heading to Patagonia. but I used it also in very hot temperatures in Malawi, in Tanzania, and I was sleeping very comfortable either way. I hope that was helpful to you. Hit the like button or dislike it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!